welcome. I'm Pauline from PQW. Delighted you can join us. I want to teach you how to conquer bias, how to get bias sitting perfectly around your tight curves. And you can see here we've got a beautiful double bias. And I think once you learn how to conquer bias, you'll be able to use it in lots of different aspects of your quilting and your dressmaking. I'm now going to introduce you to Joey, who's going to assist me in showing you some of the projects that you can learn from the classroom. So welcome, Joey.
Good evening. I'm well, very well.
Great. So I'll get you to hold these up and we'll explain a little bit about them so that everybody can get an understanding. Now, as you know, we do Quilt as you go here at PQW. So we've quilted the background first. And then we've done the applique, but you can see we've used the bias as a feature and it just really sets things off. And please don't be afraid of it. We're going to teach you how to conquer it. So, you know, you could use this for a centre of a quilt. You could make more blocks to go around it. So let's see what we've got next, Joey. Once again, all of these will feature the bias.
This one's stunning.
Isn't it gorgeous? And I just wanted a silhouette of the tulips. I didn't want to fill it in with colour here. I just wanted it to be like a silhouette. All of this fabric that we've used for the weaving here, I did cut that on the bias because of the fabric. I wanted it to sit nicely. And then we've just, everything is bias on this whole quilt. So once again, we quilted the background first. Then we've made the bias, which we're going to teach you how to do. And I'm going to show you how to put the bias down and how to get the lovely miters. And we've loved making all these projects. We just love experimenting with fabric, with colour, design. So this one here, we've used our circle templates. If you don't have the circle set of templates, they are fabulous. You can get them on our website. So we've glued we've quilted and then we've glued everything down in place. And then we haven't used bias around all the edges, but in some of them we felt that it needed picking up with a bit of colour. So bias was the obvious choice. But using the circles and our Sasha collection, you can create very unique quilts. Once again, you could keep making more blocks, quilt as you go, and join all of this together and you get a stunning quilt. Just making it larger and larger and larger to suit your bed style or size. This next one I love doing, and I am going to make this into a quilt.
So
Don't
vibrant.
you love that? It's just gorgeous.
So this one's actually a cushion cover.
It is. So using just plain fabrics, which I had in my stash, and then I had this gorgeous tulip pink feature fabric, which I thought would look stunning as bias, which it has. So once again, we quilted the background first. We glued everything in place and we used the Roxanne glue based it. I don't like to use fusible web underneath the back of my appliques because it makes it really stiff. So I don't want stiffness there. Then we've made the bias. And once you learn to cut your bias on the true bias, you never have trouble with it sitting nicely around the tight curves. A lot of people, when they put bias down, they get puckering on this inside curve. If you're 1 or 2 threads off the true bias, you're going to get puckering. So we're going to show you how to get it right. So yeah, I'm going to make more and more of these blocks, make it into a great quilt.
I like that. Those colours are gorgeous.
Now this is just a little table runner.
More like that, isn't it?
Once again, you could make more and more blocks. Once you learn the technique, you could make more and more blocks and turn this into a full-size quilt. You could make the bias run right through the quilt. But once again, we quilt the background, we glue our shapes in, we make the bias. And I think you agree, stripes look fabulous as bias, don't they?
On the bias, that lovely. Yeah.
Lovely. And this is joined together with our between the block technique. And we're going to show you another little wall hanging, a little table runner. But it's joined together with back-to-back quilt as you go technique, this one. But once again, having that gorgeous bias around it, it looks really fabulous. And, you know, you can cross it over and I'm going to show you, it's really important that I show you how to join your bias. I don't sew it together because I believe when we've got 2, say, 1/2-inch strips and we've got to join them on the bias, it's near impossible to get it laying straight. So I don't join it. I'm going to show you how I do that in our little demonstration in a moment. So you can learn as many things as you like. Gorgeous little runner. We'll just show the back. Because you could put it up on your table just like this.
Yeah, I love how they're all
all the flow
reversible.
together. Yeah, they are all reversible, and it's very, very simple to do. So, but what I want to show you is how I cut the bias. That's the most important step. Then I'm going to show you how to make it and how to put it in place, talk about stitching it down, and then we're going to show you some quilts we've made using the bias that are patterns available from our website. So I'm just going to use this red fabric, any fabric you want. Like even using our sasha tools, which are these tools, and you may know about these, there's 20 different sizes. Now I'm going to show you how to make a 1-inch bias strip and a 1/4-inch bias strip, but there's no reason why you can't make your bias strips any size you want, knowing that we've got the 20 different sasha sizes available to you. So what we do, we'll go to our cutting board, and I'm going to use my little workboard, which I love. If you don't have one of these, it's time you get one because we've still got them on special. So I would recommend you hop online and grab one now because I think you'll love them because they're a cutting mat. The sandpaper is what I use when I'm tracing out applique shapes so my fabric doesn't stretch. Then I have the ironing mat. So I use it all the time. They're fabulous little tools. So we're going to put this fabric down, and you can see I've already cut some strips off here, but I'm going to work off this corner. Now, a lot of people just fold their fabric across and presume that is the bias. Yes, it is the bias, but we don't know that it's the true bias. A lot of our rulers we use to get our bias, which is a bias is a 45-degree angle. But I find most rulers, nearly all of them, only have one 45-degree angle marked on them. So I have designed up the Sasha bias ruler. Now you'll notice here that it's got all of these diagonal lines, 45-degree angle lines, spaced all across the ruler in both directions, and it's got all your measurements on it that you would need. So what we're going to do is we're going to place one of these diagonal lines on one of the straight edges of the fabric, and then the other one on the other edge. So we'll get the camera to come in really, really close. We're going to come into this one. Now we've got this line running parallel up this edge and this line running parallel here. We'll just straighten it up a bit. If your fabric's not straight on the edges, when you put this down, if it doesn't lay straight on the edges, it would be time to trim this. And that's what I need to do because this is not a straight edge. So I'm just going to fold the fabric over. Make sure I haven't got any folds on the twists on the fold. I want it hanging very straight on the fold. Just get it all lined up. Check it again that it's hanging straight on that fold. And I'm going to fold it again because I find cutting and you can see here now, if the camera comes in, you can see how crooked this is here. So I'm just going to straighten it off, but I'm going to fold it again because I find a short cut is a much better cut, much easier, quicker, much more accurate. I'll line my ruler up. I'm not using the lines on the board, I'm using the edge of my ruler. I'm using the little rotary cutter, one hand position and cut. Oops, I don't think I cut right through. Didn't use enough muscle. There we go. So now I've got a straight edge. So we'll put this back down. We will reposition our ruler so that we've got that running exactly even off both edges now. So that now gives us the true bias because we can check that we've got a perfect right angle here, which gives us a perfect bias here. Hold your hand in position. Your little rotary cutter doesn't allow the fabric to stretch like a big blade would, so I really recommend one of these, and we just got great stock of these in just yesterday. Now I want to cut let's say we're going to cut it an inch strip. I'm going to line the diagonal line on the straight edge of the fabric here and the diagonal line on the straight edge of the fabric here. So I know that I've still got this on the true bias. And we will cut across. And there's our inch strip cut. Now, if I was going to keep cutting more strips from this, I would have to keep moving the ruler, which I don't like doing. So what I do is I take this straight edge up to this straight edge. This is my bias. So I'm folding straight edge to straight edge. And I fold again. Now what I've got here is a very, very short cut. I'm just going to fold it around so that it reposition this. But I find having that short cut makes it a much quicker cut and much neater. We do need to have this straight line because we're going to put one of the diagonal lines on the ruler on that straight edge. This cut here that I'm going to cut is my bias edge. So I want to cut a half-inch strip. Just hold your fabric down or hold your hand on the ruler. And our rulers are non-slip. They're engraved deep into the back of the ruler so the ruler doesn't slip. So you don't have to put a lot of pressure down. We just cut. And we just keep aligning that line along the straight edge and keep cutting. And you'll get really, really beautiful bias. And you can see I don't have to move the fabric, I just lift the ruler up and move the ruler. And that's as simple as it is to cut lots and lots of bias strips. Let's keep moving that. All we're doing is keeping an eye on this diagonal line and our measurement line. Now if I wanted to come and cut a 2-inch wide strip, I'm still going to keep my eye on this line. My 2-inch measurement is sitting on that last cut line. Just line it all up. Now I have a 2-inch strip. So there's all my bias strips cut. When we open it out, we've got our nice long strips, perfectly straight. So if you fold your fabric right and use the ruler, you'll get perfect strips of bias. But what I said before, I really don't like joining these together to make them into one long strip. Because doing that, it really is difficult, around the right way, it really is difficult to get this to come out exactly even. It's so fiddly under the foot of the sewing machine. So I'm going to make some bias now and then I'm going to show you how I would join this after I've made the bias. So we'll just tidy this up a bit. Now I'm going to use the 1/4-inch sasher tool. Now if you've never used one of our sasher tools before, we are the original designers of these. There's lots of copies out there. Don't buy the copies because they melt. These ones don't. These ones are accurate in measurement. Whatever size tool we're going to use, we need to cut our fabric double the measurement. So this is a 1/4 inch, I've cut this 1/2 inch. What we're going to do is fold each edge in till it meets. And I love using the little mini iron to do this because it's not as clumsy as my big iron. Just iron that over, hold it so the folded edge is facing down to your ironing surface. Come up from the bottom, and I use an awl. This is the best tool you can ever have. It's like a third hand. Pop that down through. Use your double fork pin, the twin pin, because that's going to put equal tension on both sides of that bias. 2 separate pins or 1 pin will allow your bias to stretch too much. That's why I recommend the double pin. Hold your fabric up off the ironing surface a little bit. Just turn this around. Put the iron against the curve and just push. Move the iron along there slowly because you need plenty of heat to make that fabric keep its fold. Run the iron against it over it a few times just to get that heat into it. Unpin it and repin after about every 12 inches of pressing. And off you go again. And it is so, so simple. So simple. So there's our bias made, and it can't get any simpler than that. So all of those projects that Joey just showed you, that's how we make our bias. And you can see how it folds it over perfect towards the back. Now, if I'm going to put this in place, I've got a piece of pre-quilted fabric here, fabric that we've quilted up. There's a couple of ways you can put this down. We can either use the glue pen or we can use the Roxanne glue basted. But I'm going to use the glue pen first, but I just want to show you how to refill this because a lot of people don't understand you can buy refills for this. So if you're going to buy one of these off our website, I would suggest when you order the glue pen, order yourself 5 or 6 extra refills so that you've always got them. Take the lid off. Now this one's empty, so I'm going to wind it up, and you'll notice we've got this little grey tip. It pops off. Okay, that pops off and I'm left with just this little plastic top. Take the top off your refill. You've got your little grey tip. Put that onto your plastic tip and there's your refill. Wind that down, right down in. You don't want to have it exposed too much. Now we're ready to go. So if I want to put this bias in place, and I like that it's blue because I can see it on most coloured fabrics. It dries quite quickly, so don't glue too much. Then all we do is put this in place. It is so, so simple. And you'll see that bias strip sits around all of those curves. Now I can come back and press it. If I, for some reason, made a mistake or I didn't want that there, I decided I don't like that colour or I don't like the positioning, you can quite easily pull it off. This glue is water soluble, so it will wash out. Now, if I ran out here and I need to join it, and this is where we'll need the camera to come in really, really close, make sure you get your glue underneath. Now we'll say this is the next piece that I want to join on. Turn it to the back, use your glue pen and put a little bit of glue onto the wrong side of the bias strip. Then fold it over onto a 45-degree angle. Just fold the edge over. If you want to make sure you've got a true 45-degree angle, put your ruler on here to make sure you've got that 45 degree. Put some glue on here, glue where you want it to go. Put this over the top. Now this is where I use the awl to tuck any little edges that are hanging outside. Tuck it back in place and grab your iron and start ironing it into place. Now, what I do next, once I've got all the bias in place, I'll set my machine up with the monopoly clear thread in the top and the bobbin. Now, if you don't know how to use this thread, I'd love you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have a look at the playlist. You'll see how to use the monopoly thread. I have a great video on there showing you how to thread this onto your bobbin, how to thread it onto your machine so you have no problems with it. This does not melt. It's not a monofilament, it is monopoly. We have this on our website. So I thread up with that in the top and the bobbin, and then I use an open toe foot on the machine and I stitch really close on the edge on both sides. Now, a lot of people say to me, why not use a twin needle? You certainly can use a twin needle, but I don't because I always pre-quilt my fabric first. Anything I do all the quilting first, not last. If I used a twin needle and I had quilted first, when I look at the back, I'd have like a zigzag because when you use a twin needle, it's straight stitch on the front, but the threads cross over on the back and it's not a nice finish when you quilt first. So that's why I do 2 rows of stitching. So I'm going to stitch down either side, and once I've finished that, I use really nice sharp scissors and I trim that end off. Then when you get this all done, nobody will know that you haven't joined that little intersection by machine. It won't show up at all. If you get to the end of something and you finish, you will just put your glue on the back side again. You will use your awl and you'll turn it back onto itself. If you want to come around a corner, you can get that mitered corner by doing that, and you can continue on. If I come back up to here and want to finish here, oops, I'll just press this little bit down. If I want to finish here, I can do two things. I can either pick this up with my awl, tuck this piece underneath, and then I could trim it back in under here. Or I could do what we've done when we've joined it. I could flip it onto a mitre, glue it in place, and then stitch it and trim this end off. So you've got lots of options. It's not hard. Bias is so simple. If you want to do a wide strip, this is cut 2 inches wide. You fold it in. And this is great if you're a dressmaker, or you make children's clothes or something, or bags around the edges of bags and that, or purses. You can make wider bias, put it through 2 inches, folds down to a 1 inch, so you put it in the 1 inch tool. You'll notice when I put it into the larger tools, I always have the folded edge facing up. You only have the folded edge facing down if you use the 1/8 or the 1/4 inch sasher tool. All the rest are facing up. It's just because the fold is so small on the smaller tools that you need them facing down. And there's our wider bias made. So that would sit beautifully around a neckline of a garment. It will sit absolutely perfect because it's cut on the right bias, around the armholes, wherever you want it to go. So that's just a little hints and tips to teach you how to conquer bias the right way. I hope you give it a try. If I was using the Roxanne glue, we can take this off. So just put little tiny dots. So it depends. I like using both. I really do prefer the Roxanne glue because it holds better. But I could now, if I'm going to put this down, I'm going to iron it with a hot iron because I need to set the glue. The glue doesn't stick to the iron. It is water-soluble glue. It will wash out, but it holds it in place. So if I was making a project and I didn't think I'd get to stitch it today or next week or next month, I'd definitely use the Roxanne glue. If I was going to put something down and stitch it straight away, I'd use the glue pen, but you've got all those options. So Joey, I'm going to call you back in again and we're going to show a couple of those quilts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I just want to, show you some of the quilts that we have patterns for. Just to give you an idea that making a quilt as you go using bias is the simplest thing you will ever do. So with this gorgeous circle celebration, once again, we cut the top fabrics out, the backing and the wadding. We quilted each block first and then we glued the circles in place with the Roxanne glue, and then we've made the bias and put the bias around all the edges. And then when I got the blocks finished, they looked a little bit too spaced out. So I made some extra bias that would flow through the quilt. And it just made it pop. Without that bias there, it would look very, very plain. And it just made it look just so much better. So if you wanted to make this into a queen size quilt, you would just follow the pattern that we have. You would just make extra blocks, or you can make the blocks larger to start with. I think these are 9 inch. You could make these 15-inch blocks. We used our circle tools to cut out all the circles. Very, very simple process. So thank you. We have Dance of the Butterflies, and I don't have this quilt. Actually, I do have this quilt here to show you. on the shelf. So this one is a gorgeous one, and I think those that have made this quilt will agree it is a stunning quilt, and I've had lots of people make this into queen size quilts. The pattern is for this size that you see here, but once again it just gives a beautiful feature, putting this bias around the edge of those fans. And without that, this did not pop. It just looked very, very dull. Once again, this was made in 2 panels, quilted first. Then we've used the 1/4 inch sasha tool to make all the bias. We've made the 3, 2 and 1 inch sasha tools there to do the sashings, to join it together. We've used the 1 inch here. So the sasha tools can do lots of work for you. And then the other stunning quilt we've got is Ebony and Ivy. Now, if you want to get this pattern, this one will be out of stock and it won't be reproduced. So it's time to hop on and grab this pattern.
Oh, it's
just gorgeous. Yeah, it's that one. So look how beautiful it is. But once again, you can make this much larger by making more blocks. You can make the blocks bigger. You could make table runners out of it. You could make placemats out of it. There's all sorts of things you can do with this pattern. All the instructions are brilliant in here. So it's another quilt as you go pattern. So that's another pattern. And then that's the back. This is how we've joined it together. So it's reversible. But, you know, I think once you turn that around, I think you'll agree. That is stunning. That is stunning. No matter what colour bias you used, it will always look stunning. But it's a great exercise in getting bias perfect. And I think the other thing we've got is the cushion, Joey. That's the last thing to show. And we have the pattern for this. Now this one, I just have so much fabric in my stash. So I decided instead of using a background fabric, I would make the background fabric by weaving fabric. So I used the 2.5 inch sasha tool here and made all of these strips. These were cut on the straight grain. I laid the strips one way, then I made some more strips and I come back and I wove them through. So this is all woven background, it really gives a nice texture, doesn't it?
I love the newsprint.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And then we did some appliques and we did bias. And here we've got double bias. We put the black and white, that's one strip that goes from here to here. I think that was 3/4 of an inch, that one. And then we've put a 5/8 inch one over the top. So we have all of those different measurements. So I'd love for you to experiment, grab some of the patterns. So have a look at our website, www.pqw.com.au, and have a look around, see what tools you need to purchase, and also have a look at our YouTube channel. So if you want to know how to use any of our tools, up personal and close, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe to it and like it, and there's a video there for every one of our tools. So till we see you again, bye for now. And thanks, Joey.
You're welcome.
Thank you for helping out. So have a great year, everybody. Bye for now.